The 1994 Eastern Conference Semifinals between the Chicago Bulls and the New York Knicks was one of the most intense and controversial playoff battles of the decade. With Michael Jordan temporarily retired, the Bulls were no longer the dominant force they had been in previous seasons. This left an opening for the Knicks, led by their franchise cornerstone Patrick Ewing, to finally seize control of the Eastern Conference. However, what followed was a bruising, hard-fought series filled with drama, questionable calls, and legendary performances that cemented this rivalry in NBA history. The Knicks' quest for supremacy. For years, the Knicks had been a formidable team in the East but were consistently overshadowed by Jordan's Bulls. Under head coach Pat Riley, they had built a reputation as the league's most physical and relentless defensive team. With Ewing anchoring the paint, they aimed to capitalize on the Bulls' perceived weakness following Jordan's departure. The 1993-94 season saw the Knicks finish with a 57-25 record, securing the number 2 seed in the East. Ewing, playing some of the best basketball of his career, averaged 24.5 points, 11.2 rebounds, and 2.7 blocks per game. Surrounded by tough, battle-tested players like John Starks, Charles Oakley, and Derek Harper, the Knicks believed this was their year to finally get past Chicago and reach the NBA Finals. Beyond their star players, the Knicks had a deep bench featuring defensive specialists like Anthony Mason and Rolando Blackman, adding layers of versatility to their team structure. Riley's coaching philosophy emphasized an aggressive, hard-nosed approach that frustrated opposing offenses. The Knicks' defensive strategy revolved around constant physicality, forcing teams into tough shots and limiting second-chance opportunities. With Ewing patrolling the paint, the Knicks dared opponents to challenge them at the rim, often leading to blocked shots and defensive stops that fueled their transition offense. Another key factor in New York's success was their ability to execute in late-game situations. Throughout the regular season, the Knicks won several close contests, often relying on Ewing's interior presence and Stark's perimeter shooting to secure victories. Their experience in tight games would prove crucial in the playoffs, where every possession became a battle of endurance and execution. Despite their reputation for defensive grit, the Knicks were also an efficient offensive team when they needed to be. Their half-court sets relied heavily on pick-and-roll action, allowing Ewing to get favorable matchups against smaller defenders. When defenses collapsed on him, New York's perimeter shooters were ready to capitalize, making them one of the most balanced teams in the league. As the playoffs approached, the Knicks had one goal in mind: dethrone the Chicago Bulls and finally establish themselves as the team to beat in the Eastern Conference. They had the personnel, the coaching, and the experience to make it happen, but the question remained: could they seize their moment and take advantage of Jordan's absence? The Bulls without Jordan still a threat. Despite losing their generational superstar, the Bulls remained competitive. Led by Scottie Pippen, who had stepped into the role of the team's leader, the Bulls adapted their game to rely more on ball movement, defensive intensity, and a deep supporting cast that included B.J. Armstrong, Horace Grant, and Tony Kukoc. Pippen had an MVP-caliber season, averaging 22 points, 8.7 rebounds, and 5.6 assists, proving that the Bulls were still a formidable opponent. Beyond Pippen's individual brilliance, the Bulls embraced a collective approach, emphasizing defensive rotations, rebounding, and precision passing. Head coach Phil Jackson ensured that Chicago's offensive schemes remained fluid, utilizing Kukoc's versatility and Armstrong's shooting to spread the floor. Horace Grant, meanwhile, provided a strong interior presence, anchoring the team's defense and leading by example with his physicality and relentless work ethic. Chicago finished the regular season with a 55-27 record, securing the number 3 seed and setting up a second-round matchup with their longtime nemesis, the Knicks. While many expected New York to dominate, Chicago had no intention of going down easily. The team carried a chip on its shoulder, determined to prove they could still compete at a championship level despite Jordan's absence. The Bulls had developed a next-man-up mentality, showcasing their resilience throughout the season and finding different ways to win tight games. One of the defining moments of their season came in a late-season matchup against the Knicks, where Pippen delivered one of the most memorable dunks of the year, posterizing Patrick Ewing in Madison Square Garden. The moment symbolized Chicago's refusal to bow to their Eastern Conference rivals and foreshadowed the fierce battles that awaited in the playoffs. Even without Jordan, the Bulls remained a dangerous opponent, fully prepared to push the Knicks to their limits in one of the most intense playoff series of the decade. A brutal and controversial playoff series. The series lived up to its billing as an all-out war between two physical, defensive-minded teams. The Knicks won the first 2 games at Madison Square Garden, controlling the pace with their bruising defense. Ewing dominated in the paint, while John Starks provided key perimeter scoring. The Bulls, however, responded with 2 gritty wins at the Chicago Stadium, setting the stage for an epic Game 5. Game 5 remains one of the most infamous games in NBA playoff history. With the game on the line in the closing second, the Bulls had the ball trailing by 1. Scottie Pippen inbound to Hubert Davis, who attempted a jumper that missed, but a controversial foul call against Pippen gave Davis free throws to win the game for New York. The call ignited outrage among Bulls players and fans, with many believing the game had been decided by officiating rather than play on the court. The moment remains a prime example of how officiating controversies can shape postseason legacy, with Bulls fans still questioning whether they were robbed of a fair outcome. With the Knicks up 3-2, the series shifted back to Chicago for Game 6. Facing elimination, Pippen delivered a commanding performance, while the Bulls' defense suffocated the Knicks' offense. Chicago's role players also stepped up, with Horace Grant dominating the boards and B.J. Armstrong hitting key perimeter shots. The game was a testament to the Bulls' resilience, proving they still had the heart of a champion despite Jordan's absence. The intensity of Game 6 further fueled the animosity between the two teams, as hard fouls, trash talk, and aggressive defensive plays made for a heated contest. The decisive Game 7 back in New York became an all-out physical battle, with both teams pushing themselves to the limit. Every possession became a war of attrition, with neither side willing to concede an inch. The referees let the game be played with minimal calls, allowing the Knicks' bruising style to take full effect. Ewing stepped up as the game's defensive anchor, while Starks and Derek Harper hit clutch baskets to keep the Knicks ahead. The Bulls, despite another stellar performance from Pippen, struggled to match New York's physicality in the closing moment. The game ended in heartbreak for Chicago, as the Knicks pulled away in the final minutes to seal their victory. The outcome left a bitter taste for Bulls fans, who believed that if Jordan had been playing, the series would have ended differently. For the Knicks, however, it was their moment of triumph, proof that they could finally get past their longtime nemesis, even if only for one season. Game 7, Ewing's moment and the Knicks' triumph. The final game of the series was a classic battle of wills. Ewing, determined to finally take down the Bulls, put together a dominant performance with 18 points, 17 rebounds, and several clutch plays down the stretch. His defensive presence in the paint altered multiple Chicago possessions, forcing the Bulls into tough, contested shots. His leadership and energy helped keep the Knicks focused in an incredibly tense environment at Madison Square Garden. Meanwhile, John Starks delivered one of his best playoff performances, hitting key shots and playing relentless defense. He fearlessly attacked the basket, knocking down critical three-pointers and making life difficult for the Bulls' perimeter players. His aggressive style of play epitomized the Knicks' physical approach, frustrating Chicago and ensuring New York maintained control of the tempo throughout the game. The Knicks held off a late Bulls rally, winning 87-77 and advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals. The final minutes saw Chicago attempt one last push, but clutch free throws and defensive stops by New York sealed the game. This victory marked a significant moment for New York, as they had finally overcome their greatest rival, albeit in a year when Jordan was absent. While some critics questioned the legitimacy of their triumph due to Jordan's retirement, the Knicks had proven that they could rise to the occasion when it mattered most. The atmosphere in Madison Square Garden was electric as fans erupted in celebration, sensing that this could finally be the Knicks' year. The team embraced center court, knowing they had exorcised the demons of previous playoff failure. Ewing's performance was particularly significant, as he had long been overshadowed by the dominance of Jordan and the Bulls. This win was his signature moment, the game where he cemented his place among the NBA's greatest big men. The Knicks would go on to the NBA Finals but ultimately fell to the Houston Rockets in a 7-game series. The loss was heartbreaking, especially after New York had been on the verge of victory in Game 6. Starks, who had been brilliant in the Bulls series, struggled mightily in the final game against Houston, shooting just 2-for-18. The missed opportunity only added to the frustration of Knicks fans, who believed they had their best chance in decades to bring home a championship. Still, the victory over the Bulls remained a defining moment for the franchise. It was the year the Knicks stood tall against their greatest rival and, for at least one season, proved they could control the Eastern Conference. Though a championship eluded them, the 1994 playoffs solidified Ewing's legacy and proved that the Knicks could stand toe-to-toe with the best teams of their era. Legacy of the 1994 Bulls-Knicks rivalry. The 1994 series remains one of the most debated and celebrated rivalries in NBA history. It was a battle of contrasting styles, New York's physical, grinded-out defense against Chicago's disciplined and well-coached team play. Though the Knicks prevailed, many wondered what might have happened if Jordan had been on the floor. For Patrick Ewing, the series was both a triumph and a missed opportunity. He had finally overcome the Bulls, but the absence of a championship still loomed over his career. For Scottie Pippen, the series cemented his legacy as a true superstar capable of leading a team, even in the face of adversity. Though the Bulls would reclaim their throne upon Jordan's return in 1995, the 1994 battle between Chicago and New York remains one of the most iconic rivalries in the history of the NBA. It was the year Patrick Ewing and the Knicks almost took over Chicago, proving that, for one brief moment, the Eastern Conference belonged to them.